Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. Hope you're good. Um, First things first, thank you so much for the comments and the messages and engagement on last week's post, which was really covering psychological contract and company culture, and particular things that you may want to have in mind as a hiring manager or recruiter when you are embarking on some new resourcing or hiring activity for the company you're working with or the company you work for. Some really interesting perspectives, so that's helped me again, and I really appreciate it. And as I mentioned in last week's video, where the theme for these videos and the content that I'm getting is all based around the set of questions that I would go through with any hiring manager, either internally within the company that I work or for clients of ours. These thoughts and themes that I'm doing videos on are all questions around what I would ask and what I would delve into to any of my clients or hiring managers that I'm working with. So in the first video, we covered partnership, the partnership between a recruiter and a hiring manager, whether that be an internal or external recruiter. And last week, as I say, we looked at company culture and psychological contract and things to really take into consideration for a successful candidate journey and hiring strategy within your business. So this week, probably the last thing that I ask any hiring managers that I work with, once I've gained all of, carried out thorough job analysis and I understand a little bit about the company culture, maybe had a good look round, kind of the last thing that I'll go through, which really helps me piece lots of last bits and pieces together, is what the recruitment and selection process is within the business. So really, recruitment wise, I understand you using an agency, or I know the recruitment process because it's the business that I'm working within. And then moving on to selection, how are you going to take any successful candidates that I send your way? What's the process going to be for them? Me knowing that as the person or one of the people that are going to have most contact in the initial stages of the candidate journey is really important from a preparation point of view, of course, so I can talk any candidates through exactly what to expect, especially if there's an additional preparation for them to have ready for interviews or presentations or assessment centres or whatever it might be. But also it gives me a real insight into, quite often talk about retention within recruitment, long-term job prospects for the individual. It gives me a good idea of how much thought has been put into candidate journey, really. So quite often, which I think this is really interesting, but I am a recruitment geek, so I would, quite often, I would say, 100% of the time, I am told that there will be an interview within that process, maybe a first stage with the hiring manager and then a second stage with a more senior manager, something like that. But every single time there's an interview, particularly for permanent positions, and that won't come as a shock to anybody. So I've been having a look at that, not just this week, this is something I was aware of already. And in the comment section below, I'm just going to put a little meta-analytical study which shows you various different types of recruitment tools and how successful they are in predicting sort of long-term job success for the candidate. And interviews score pretty low. Two types of interview format that is often looked at from a HR perspective, kind of an informal chit chat and a structured interview where you've thought about whether you're going to use situational questions or competency based questions or whatever it might be. But interviews alone as part of your hiring strategy are not do not score that highly. So how they actually come up with these results is to 12 months on from a recruitment process, anybody that is exceeding expectations and really successful in that position, they would look at how they were recruited and then determine which recruitment methods are best, really. So would you consider hiring without interviewing? Do you think, if you're on a real tight schedule, you found some great candidate CVs, but, you've got the opportunity to use one recruitment method from a time perspective, would you go with one of the higher scoring? Would you give that a try and not go down the interview route? So I think that would be really uncomfortable for most people. From a candidate, they would feel incredibly shortchanged, in my opinion. They would feel like they haven't had the opportunity maybe to tell you everything that they want to tell you, or talk you through previous job experience. And from an employer, you'd be taking somebody into your business that you just don't know at all. You've seen a CV and maybe put them through, like I say, an assessment or an ability test or some psychometric testing or something along those lines. But without the interview, I think most people would feel quite uncomfortable. So within your business, I would love to hear what your hiring process is, what your hiring strategy is. Do you use a number of different recruitment tools? Are you really comfortable actually with the interview process? And in terms of long-term job success, you feel like that has always worked for you. So 80% of companies in the UK utilize what is quite widely known in the HR world as the classic trio. So that is a CV or an application form, followed by an interview, followed by collecting references. So quite traditional methods there. And 80% of companies, as I say, still use those three methods, maybe more methods than that. So interested to know your thoughts on that. My personal opinion is that the recruitment process has to be tailored, sometimes by job, but definitely by company. And if you've got a number of hiring managers in the business, I think it's really important that the candidate journey is at the forefront of your mind, because that will help with your retention, and also your company culture, psychological contract, all that sort of thing has to kind of be steeped in your process, and everybody has to be on the same page. From a lawful point of view, that just helps from, discrimination. All of your candidates are treated the same way. But also it does amazing things for your company image and your brand as well. And if everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet, you've probably got much more chance of your candidates and new starters having a long and prosperous journey with that business, with your business. So yeah, interested to know. I did a video about a year ago on psychometrics, on personality testing. My concerns around the fact more and more recruitment companies seem to be offering psychometric testing, but to my knowledge, there was no individual within some of those companies to be able to successfully, or again lawfully, interpret the data that the individual was sort of providing. So nothing in some of the advertisements I certainly received to say that there was a trained assessor to British psychological standards. So I was a little bit worried about the use of psychometrics within recruitment. So anything to add on that? Do you use it? Are you interested in using it? Is it something you would consider for senior posts? I would love to know about that as well. Hope this has been useful to you and interesting. I'm sure if there's any more recruitment geeks out there, they may know it already, but any thoughts and perspectives on this video or my other videos, I'd love to hear them. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and I will see you next week.